Hi YouTube, it's been a minute. I read 67 books last year, which just feels very fitting for 2025 because that number was haunting me all year long. It wasn't an intentional thing, but somewhere in the last week of December I realized that I was approaching 67 and I did read a short story, and I'm counting that. And I'm also counting 2 poetry collections. Sue me. I did read 67 books. I thought I would rejoin the world of booktube to tell you about all of the books that I read last year and rank them from worst to best. Starting out at number 67, the worst book that I read last year, The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna. Also the last book that I read last year. I would have quit because it was so boring, but it was the only book that I brought with me to the beach. So I was stuck with it and forced to read 400 pages, hoping it would get better, and it didn't. I'm sorry, I did not like this book. Next was The Most by Jessica Anthony. This was a super short audiobook. It follows a traditional housewife in the 50s or 60s who one day gets into the swimming pool and seemingly has a mental breakdown and never gets out. That was really intriguing to me. The book was not, and forgettable, honestly. I had to look up the synopsis. I can't tell you anything more. Number 65. Last year, it was a goal of mine to start a book club, which I did, and I truly loved my book club, and I'm so glad that I started it. However, you will notice a theme. A lot of those book club books are low on this list because we just chose thriller books, which I don't personally love, but it got me out of my comfort zone and forced me to read things that I wouldn't have necessarily picked. So I condone starting a book club. It was super fun, and honestly, when you're reading a bad book, it's almost better when it's for book club because then you can just meet and trash it and all complain about the book that you hated. That being said, number 65 was The Frozen River by Ariel Wahan. It was supposed to be a thriller mystery. I found it really long and really boring and hardly mysterious. It was also supposed to be sort of a feminist book. It's about this midwife. I personally have a fear of childbirth. Didn't like reading about that, not one bit. I would have quit if not for the group. 64, None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell, another modern thriller book. I didn't learn my lesson. I kept trying to read these books and not liking them. I couldn't tell you what happened, and I'm not gonna Google it. I just didn't like it. Not my cup of tea. Number 63. You guessed it, another book club book, Broken Country by Claire Leslie Hall. So yeah, clearly the theme of book club was thriller books that I couldn't wait to be done reading. This one was like barely even a mystery. It was just a horrible, unforgivable woman making bad decisions. Not a fan. Number 62, First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. This was just a cheesy rom-com. Everyone was recommending it online, so I had high hopes and they were not met. I found it boring and cheesy and forgettable, and I think I listened to the audiobook probably at 2 times speed. 61. Am I really like high up? I moved you down a bit. I'm not gonna start over. We're just gonna power through. The Sound of Gravel. This was a really tough read. It's a memoir. It's about a little girl born into a polygamous family. Her dad is a polygamist. Her story is one of abuse and neglect, and it's so heartbreaking and painful to read. The events that occurred were atrocious, and I truly could not handle it. This one fell a little bit flat for me because the content was really hard and difficult, and the writing style just didn't quite redeem it. Very tough read. Number 60, another book club pick, Not Quite Dead Yet by Holly Jackson. This book was wild. We really had to suspend our disbelief, and honestly, the book itself, but we all had a really fun time roasting it. It's about a girl who is murdered, or someone attempts to murder her, but they don't fully murder her, and she goes to the hospital, has like, I don't know, an aneurysm or something, and the doctor is basically like, you're gonna die in a week. So she decides to try to solve her murder. Crazy book. And then the next book club, Listen for the Lie, Amy Tintera. Just a classic whodunit. I do remember feeling intrigued and feeling surprised by the ending. It wasn't like horrible. It's not my kind of book, which is why these are all like low down. They're fine books. It's just not the kind of book that I personally choose. 58, Empire of Pain, Patrick Radden Keefe. This is a full historical account of the Sackler family and their creation of the pharmaceutical company Purdue Pharma, which is responsible for the opioid crisis. That alone really intrigued me, but it was so long and boring. I listened to the audiobook and maybe that was my mistake. It might have been the narrator. Oh my gosh, this boy rambled on for so long. I feel like it was like 17 hours long. It was so much historical account of the family and their lives, and I was like, I actually don't care about them at all. I just wanted to learn more about the drugs. I had to skip to get to the drug part because I was so bored. And I think I'm in the minority. Number 57 is a shocker. Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. I hate to see her this low down on this list. If you know me, you know that I love Emily Henry, or I used to. This one is really where I hopped off the bandwagon. I didn't care for this book. The romance was unconvincing. So the plot is two journalists are competing to tell the story of this famous icon starlet, Margaret. I really liked Margaret's story, the flashback part, but that's maybe a third of the book. Everything else, yawn. I'm sad that it's this low down. I still will read Emily Henry. I'm not gonna buy them anymore. I'm just gonna get them from the library. Where are you? 56. Into the Wild by John Krakauer. Christopher McCandless is born into like a relatively wealthy family, decides to abandon that for a Jack Kerouac-esque lifestyle, backpacking and travel. He sells all of his belongings. He abandons his family and doesn't even tell them where he's going and just tries to live off the land. He ends up in Alaska and he ends up starving to death. And this one was tough. I found it boring, but also I don't know where I'm left. He was simultaneously an idealist, an outside thinker who went against the status quo, but his fate was the product of his own decisions. So it is difficult to like fully extend empathy. I honestly feel bad for his parents, most of all. Yeah, I think the movie was better. 55. Barbara isn't dying. Walter and Barbara have been married for their whole life, and one day Barbara is sick and she can't get out of bed. Walter has to figure out how to take care of her. He's in denial of how sick she is. It's sad and it's like a little bit funny. At its heart, it's a book about aging, fear of death, and getting old. It's really heavy and really sad themes, and I was hoping for some sort of resolution perspective that made it feel worth it, and I didn't find that. And maybe that's the point. 54, In the Time of the Butterflies by Julia Alvarez, which I bought from a thrift store because I liked the cover. It was just really political and really sad. It's a downer, for sure. I actually was reading this at the beach, and a woman saw me carrying it on the elevator, and she was like, "Oh,
that's a pretty heavy beach read."
And I was like, yeah, it was a mistake. 53. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I decided to reread it with my boyfriend, and reading it out loud really showed me how wordy these books are. I do think that this is the worst one in the series, and I'm looking forward to the next. 52, Crown of Midnight by Sarah J. Maas. Tried to hop on the fantasy train, didn't make it very far. It was fine, like I was pleasantly surprised, though I enjoyed it more than I thought I would. I didn't enjoy it enough to wait 30 weeks for the hold at the library. 51, A Gentleman in Moscow. Amor Tolls, not the target audience. I thought it was boring. I didn't really like it that much. It was very well written. The characters were lovable. Like, it was funny. I don't know why. Like, it wasn't a bad book. I didn't like it. 50, Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. This was such a mindfuck, and it just went. I was intrigued, but I didn't know what was going on for like a lot of it. I don't really like sci-fi. Before I Let Go, number 49. This was like a decent, steamy romance book that also tackled themes of mental health and depression, and specifically Black mental health and grief and like beautiful, important topics. But like all of those were just so undercut by the smut. I did not care for the smut. I listened to it in audiobook, so maybe that's harder to listen to than it is to read. It was a lot for me personally. 48, Funny Story by Emily Henry. I listened to the audiobook because, I don't know, I wanted to give it another try. I thought maybe the audio would have been better because I didn't really like it when I read it first time last year, and I was disappointed, and I didn't really like it that much the second time around. It was fine, but like, what are you doing? What's going on? I don't know. It's really upsetting. 47, Stone Yard Devotional by Charlotte Wood. This is a trippy, spooky, reflective book about a woman who abandons her life to move to a monastery and live with nuns. She's not religious. She doesn't believe in God, but she just moves there, and all of these weird things start happening. There's like plague-like side effects. I don't know. Mouse infestation, which is disgusting, by the way. And then there's also someone dies. Clearly it didn't stick with me that much, but yeah, someone died, I think like years ago, and then they find her body and bring it back to the nunnery. I think it was weird. Like, this was a weird book. Like, it was fun, but I don't know what the point was, truly. Number 46, We Do Not Part by Han Kang. Another really weird, spooky, trippy book. Like, also beautiful, but haunting. It's about, I don't know, there's like a cabin in the woods, there's two friends, one of them's injured, there's a snowstorm, there's an enchanting bird, and then there's also a lot of memory about the Korean War. So just like a heavy book that I did read on a camping trip and scared the bejesus out of myself. Number 45 was The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This is like a fun, cheesy rom-com about two people who are separated by a magical 7-year gap in an apartment. It was good. It was fun. It was a good time. I listened to the audiobook. I liked it. 44, Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. Another fun, cheesy, easy beach summer romance book. Yeah, it's like two people who both, every time that they break up with someone, their ex then goes on to like marry their forever person. So then they think they're cursed, and they're like, oh, we'll solve this curse by dating each other, and then we'll break up. And then we'll meet our soulmates. You can guess what happens next. 43, The God of the Woods by Liz Moore, a thriller book, or mystery. It was a mystery thriller. I liked it. It's about like a summer camp and two kids go missing years apart. It was pretty good. I don't really like thriller books. This one was well written and I enjoyed it. 42, The Favorites by Lane Fargo. This was I, Tonya meets Daisy Jones. Everyone was obsessed with this book, and it was so hard for me to get into it. It took me like 100 pages to actually care. And then at that point I was like getting whiplash by everything that was going on. It was crazy. Two very unlikable characters, a very toxic relationship, and just like drama. Honestly, I feel like this one needs to be made into a movie or a TV show, and I would love to watch it. As a book, it was fine. So like fun, whatever. 41, Sunrise on the Reaping. This is actually the OG book club book that we started out with, and this was a fun time. Great for book club. We all had a wonderful discussion, and it was just really fun returning to this world. This is Haymitch's story, and I am really excited for the movie. Haymitch has such a depressing life. Yeah, and like the book was fine. It was good. It didn't live up to the hype of the original books. Of course, nothing ever will. And also it felt really repetitive. Like, yeah, we've been through the games, we know how this works. It was all really similar. And there were a lot of random like references to the original books that kind of felt unnecessary. It kind of felt like she was just throwing those in for readers to be like, oh my gosh, like I got that reference, but then it didn't feel like it fit with this book. Like, for example, it claims that Haymitch knew Katniss's dad, but that's like crazy because in the original books they would have mentioned that. She just kind of threw that in. I don't know. It was fine. It was fun. Fun time. Whatever. 40, Harry Potter, number 1. This was really sweet getting to read this with Micah. He's never read the series before, so I did enjoy reading it with him. I love Harry Potter. They're good books. This is my 3rd time reading. I don't necessarily agree with J.K. Rowling's politics, but she wrote some good books. And yeah, like if you haven't read them, you should. And you don't even have to buy them new. Don't give her any more money. You can 100% get them from the library, or there's probably a copy at every single thrift store. 39 was Docile, Memoirs of a Not So Perfect Asian Girl by Hee Sung-song. It's a memoir about an Asian American girl with Korean parents who immigrated to Texas when she was young. I always love learning a little bit more about someone's life and a unique perspective, so I enjoyed this book and just reading about the struggles that she faced being a Korean American and struggling with like mental health and all the pressures that come with being a 2nd generation immigrant. It was pretty well written, pulled on the heartstrings. Decent time. 38, Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis. This book read so quickly and I really enjoyed it, and the plot was very twisty and the characters were quirky and it was fun. And then at the end, it kind of lost me a little bit. it. It's about a scientist and single mother in the 60s who starts a TV show. It was good and it was kind of like feminist and like fun, but yeah, I didn't love the ending. 37, The One by John Mars. I have some sci-fi on here. I don't like sci-fi, but I sought it out because I was obsessed with Severance last year, the TV show, which is sci-fi, and I was like, I want a book that feels like this show. So I went on Reddit and they said that this was a good one, and it was. This was a good book. I listened to the audiobook. It's basically about a world where a DNA test will determine who your perfect match is, and it follows all these different couples living in this world. So some of them have gotten the test and they are matched and they're married, and then some of them have gotten the test and they're not matched but they still stay together, and then some of them have taken the test and have no matches, and there's like one couple where one of the guys is a serial killer, and it's just like very interesting and unique, and I really enjoyed it, and I thought that the plot was super fun and fast-paced. It was a pretty easy read and I would recommend it. 36, Stay True by Washu, I think is how you pronounce that. But this was another Asian American memoir about this boy who grew up in California in the 90s, going to college and hanging out with friends and listening to music, and then experiencing the tragic loss of a close friend and grappling with grief after that. It was really touching and sweet, and also a pretty quick read, but packed a lot of punch. 35 was My Husband by Maud Ventura. What a weird little book. I don't even know, the whole time I was reading it, I was just so ready to get out of this woman's head. I was like, you're an insane person, this is exhausting. But then at the end, it gets ya. It was pretty good. And I was just like, what did I just read? Crazy little book. Super quick and fun though. 34, Grief is for People by Sloane Crossley. If you're sensing a theme, I read a lot of memoirs about grief. This one was just like a super short little book, and it's about this woman experiencing the loss of a close friend via suicide. So it just explores all the painful and confusing emotions associated with that. I'm always interested to read about grief and how other people handle it. Specifically, I've experienced my own grief, and I think that it's really comforting to read about other people and how they get through it. This was a good one, really moving. 33, Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. Just another mindfuck of a book. This one just gave me such whiplash. It was so confusing and such an emotional roller coaster, and he definitely does that on purpose because it's about a Vietnam veteran who gets abducted by aliens and then is forced to time travel through his life. So he's jumping back in time. One moment he's at the dentist, and then the next moment he's in the trenches experiencing the most horrific scenes of war, and then in another scene he's in a museum on display for all of these alien creatures to look at. So weird, so confusing. I don't feel that I'm smart enough to say anything poignant about this book. I had a fun time reading it, but I was also horrified. So it goes, I guess. 32 was Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck, a classic that I somehow haven't read. It was good. It was really short. It came very highly recommended by my high school English teacher friend who said that it was required reading, and I liked it. Broke my heart, but it was good. 31, Foster by Clara Keegan. This was a super short little novella about a girl born in Ireland and given up by her family. I think her mom has a baby and then can't handle her and gives her to another family, and then she is living with this couple, and I don't know, it's really sweet and endearing, and then also heartbreaking at the same time. Small but mighty. Number 30, Everything is Tuberculosis by John Green. I'm a forever fan of John Green. I feel like John Green is such a nerd, and he's written all of these really beautiful books, and I feel like this was him being like, okay, like I'm famous now, and this was him just writing the book that he wanted to write, is the vibe that I got. I learned a lot. It actually infuriated me and broke my heart at the same time because I had no idea that tuberculosis is the leading cause of death from infectious disease, and it's 100% curable, and it's actually so infuriating, everything that contributes to this. So it was really interesting to learn about, and I would definitely recommend it. 29, Stoner by John Williams. This was recommended by someone on the internet, and everyone, I don't even know where this came from. It's like an old classic. It's about William Stoner, who's born to humble means on a farm, and then goes off to college where he falls in love with English literature, decides to become a professor at that same school where he works for the rest of his life until retirement and death. And his life is very quiet and simple, and depressing. It's a pretty sad story, but it also does observe a lot of like the simple beauties in life. It was a really simple plot with very large emotions. Number 28, The House of My Mother, A Daughter's Quest for Freedom by Sherry Frankie. This was that book by the daughter of the mommy blogger abuser. Obviously she experienced like really tumultuous things at the hand of her mother, and I think that her siblings had it even worse, which is really upsetting. Everyone was talking about this on the internet because it was obviously like a crazy thing. This was a mother who was abusing her children and also living in the public eye and posting videos about them online for everyone to see. I feel like there was a stage in the beginning where people were like really trying to protect these kids, and then it kind of got to the point where it did feel a little bit exploitative of how everyone was just broadcasting all this stuff. So all this goes to say is that Sherry Frankie, she was just really resilient, and I really appreciated the way that she protected her siblings through telling this story. Respected that she did that. Okay, 27, They're There by Tommy Orange. I read this book because he had a blurb on the cover of Martyr, which was a book that I really liked. So I read this one. I thought it was fine. It follows several stories of Native Americans in modern day America, all experiencing individual hardships that culminate together into a big climactic ending. The stories were definitely important, and I really appreciated the insight into a culture that I'm unfamiliar with. I do think that the book could have been stronger if he had zoomed in and just focused on fewer stories. There were a lot of characters, there was a lot happening, and I felt like it could have been a little bit better if it was a bit more focused. But it was still really good. 26, Ghosts by Dolly Alderton. This is a lovely little story about a woman's experience dating in her 30s and then also navigating her relationship with her parents as they age. So it had really important and interesting themes, and I love Alderton's writing. I am really excited to read more books by her. 25, Tuesdays with Maury. This is another book that Micah and I read out loud together. It was a really short book full of emotion. It's about a dying professor giving wisdom to one of his old students, Mitch Abum. We both liked it, and we loved Maury's character and all of the wisdom that he had to give. We didn't like Mitch though. We felt like everything that Maury would say would be really good nuggets of wisdom about life, and then Mitch had nothing to add or contribute. He was just there. He was like a vessel to tell the story, but sometimes he didn't serve the role of like just a quiet, like he would try to add something and it didn't do too much. But we did really like Maury, and this is like such a quick, easy read. I would recommend it. I just thought it was fine. 24, Jane and Dan at the End of the World. This was my book club pick, and I thought it was such a fun book. It is about a couple who on their 19th wedding anniversary goes out to dinner, where the wife plans to tell the husband that she wants to get a divorce, and then the restaurant where they're having dinner is besieged by a terrorist group and they're all put into a hostage situation. It was chaos and funny, a pretty light-hearted read. I really enjoyed it. But what I really loved most about this book was the little note in the acknowledgments that the author wrote. She said, "Fred, I could not have written this book without you. When I'm writing about how terrible marriage is, I'm writing about marriage. When I'm writing about how wonderful marriage is, I'm writing about us." I love love. 23. So we're including poetry in this because I had to say that I read 67 books. That's a book. Lunch Poems by Frank O'Hara. I got this one in London, and the guy, when I was checking out, the British guy was like, "Would you like a book, Mark?" I was like, "Sure." And he was like, "Yeah, no one reads poetry in one sitting." This was the cutest bookstore. They stamped it. They stamped my book. I was obsessed. I love this book because of the story that's associated with it. I'm like trying to get more into poetry. I don't have that much knowledge to critique it other than to say like I liked it and I thought it was good. 22, it was Maud Dixon by Alexandra Andrews. This was a thriller, guys, and I actually really liked it. I thought it was very good and well written. I think my beef with thrillers is that they're not usually well written, but this one was like very literary and I liked it a lot. Florence is the main character. She's a publishing employee who hates her job and believes that she's destined to be a great writer. This author, Maud Dixon, which is a pen name for Helen Wilcox, recruits her to be her publishing assistant and then invites her to go to Monaco for a research trip. And in Monaco, they go out to dinner, and then the next morning Florence wakes up in a hospital and Helen Wilcox / Maud Dixon is nowhere to be found. And so Florence is like, "Oh my gosh, I should just steal her identity," right? Crazy. This book was crazy and so fun. I really, really liked it. So if you're someone like me that likes the idea of a thriller but can't really get through them because they're all bad, sorry, this one's good. You should check it out. 21, Open Water. I really took the title literally because I read this at a lake and it got a little bit wet. unfortunately. This is a really beautiful book though. It has all these themes of being Black and being an artist and exploring like love and relationship, and it was really, really poetic, but I enjoyed it. 20, Happy Place by Emily Henry. This is why I was so upset by the other two, because I know that I like her as an author, and I know that she's good at what she does. I reread this because I annotated a copy of it for my dear friend Annie, who also loves Emily Henry as much as me. It follows Harriet and Wen, two members of a larger friend group who, after falling in love and getting married, decide to separate. The catch is that they fail to tell their friends that they've broken up and still opt to go on the group trip together, where they're like forced to sleep in the same bed. It's cute. It's like definitely cheesy and predictable, but I also think that this book is where Emily Henry really shines. She does platonic friendship so well, she does setting so well, and it really just gave me all the warm fuzzy feelings and toe-kicking cute love just as good the second time around. 19, Evidence of the Affair by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Read on December 31st when I realized that I could reach 67 books. I picked this one up. It is a short story. It's like maybe 40 minutes long. So good though. I love Taylor Jenkins Reid. Basically, a wife discovers that her husband is having an affair, and instead of confronting her husband, she writes to the husband of the wife with whom her husband is having the affair, and then they start a correspondence, and then you're like, oh, are they about to cheat on their spouses or cheating on them? It was good. You should definitely read this one in a bathtub with a glass of wine and like a Laurel Canyon playlist in the background. 18 was Make Believe, Poems for Hoping Again by Victoria Hutchins. I discovered Victoria Hutchins on TikTok because she is a yoga TikTok philosopher, writer, poet. She's really cool. I like her a lot. She used to work as a lawyer in corporate America, but then she quit because she was like, this is not what I want to be doing. She has a podcast where she talks about philosophy, and she wrote this collection of poems that I really, 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 really enjoy. I'm not like a scholar of a poet, so sometimes poetry is really hard for me. This was very accessible, very easy to digest. Anyone grappling with self-image, growing up, societal standards, heartbreak, or mental health would gain something from reading this poetry collection. 17, I have this one too and I left it downstairs. I'll just put it on the screen. Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. I had a hard time at first with this book. It's very, very tough to read. It's following two brothers who are both grieving, and the older brother is like so depressed that his chapters are just really difficult to read. But then the other brother, he writes complete sentences, and he's a chess player, and he meets this older woman. It's good. It's so classic Sally Rooney, but definitely a little bit harder to get through at first. And the only reason that I continued reading is because I know that I like her, and I'm glad that I did, because I ended up really enjoying it in the end, and it had all the classic Rooney themes that I love. It's a portrait of grief and how it affects us, how we treat people we love, how feelings and actions diverge, how families interact. Peter's chapters were very difficult to read, the form reflecting the inner turmoil, and it definitely deterred me at first, but with patience, I picked up on his voice and got accustomed to his style. If you've never read Sally Rooney, this is not the first one that you should read. You should go Normal People or Beautiful World. But if you know and enjoy Rooney's style, give it a go. Number 16 was Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. This is a long, epic tale following Damon and his experience being born into the world with cards stacked against him. You really fall in love with him and his friends and root for his success. It dealt with a lot of heavy themes such as addiction and child abuse, but the book is told through the eyes of a child, so it has this innocent, lighthearted tone throughout. It still tugs at the heartstrings, but it never felt so dark beyond respite. Overall, the plot events are really harsh. Overall, the plot is really harsh, but I did come away from this book with a lot of hope and an admiration of the strong will of the main character. I do think it could have been a lot shorter, and I had to listen to the audiobook because it was written in pretty heavy Southern dialect that was difficult to get into, but once I did really enjoy it. 15, Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott. This is advice on writing and life. Is an interesting book to read as she tells stories of her childhood and her experience as being a writer. She's very funny and very well written, and also is just really inspirational, because I want to be a writer, but I'm so bad and I don't write. This was motivational, and this made me start my Substack last year, so it's a good one. Number 14, The Women by Kristen Hanna. We read this one for book club, and I really enjoyed it. It follows the women who fought in Vietnam, specifically, I guess, the nurses, and Kristen Hanna really, I think she killed it with this one. It's so interesting learning more about history through a woman's perspective, one that's not told and has been sort of forgotten. And also her plot is just so crazy. She's good at plot. I'll give her that. It's very twisty, very gripping. Like, yeah, it's about war. It's a heavy read, but it's still really fun and easy to read, I think. 13, Into Thin Air by John Krakauer. I've already forgotten. This was such a good book. This book terrified me. It follows a journalist as he embarks to climb Mount Everest and dispels the lore associated with the summit. On his specific climbing date, a storm comes totally out of the blue and wreaks havoc on him and all of the other people climbing. It is truly so harrowing, and then also just so interesting, like the ethics of climbing the mountain, the hubris in human nature of like wanting to climb this tall mountain, and it's so expensive and it puts all these Sherpas at risk. After reading this book, the thought of climbing Mount Everest is like so disgusting to me. Truly very interesting. Really good read. Number 12, I like how I'm holding it up, but it literally doesn't have The Compound by Aisling Rawle. Such a fun, unique story. It's a reality show set in a fictional future where contestants live in a mansion and complete tasks to earn rewards. In order to stay, they must sleep in the same bed with a member of the opposite sex, and the person to last the longest wins. It was such an interesting commentary on capitalism and just truly a wild ride. Number 11, The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. I don't know how I hadn't read this before. It's such a classic for a reason. I really enjoyed this book. It terrified me, but I'm really glad that I read it. It was just captivating, horrifying. Every woman should read this book. I'm sweating. We're finally getting into the final 10 books that I read last year. The meat and potatoes, the best. Number 10, Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. And I had a physical copy, but immediately after reading it, gave it away because it was that good. I wish I could summarize this book with the proper eloquence and literary analysis that it deserves. Written by a poet, this book is full of beautiful language and philosophical ideas. The story is about a poet, a drunk Iranian American orphan, attempting to reckon with his past, his present, his existence in this country. I highly adored this book and would recommend it to everyone. It was really good and very unique too. You can tell that it's written by a poet, so you have to be a little patient, but it's definitely worth the read. Number 9, Margot's Got Money Troubles by Ruthie Thorpe. What a romp. This book was so fun. Margot is like 19 when she gets pregnant and turns to OnlyFans to support her child and herself. The plot was really unique and silly and packed with humor, but still allowed for reflective moments that shed light on motherhood and addiction and making one's way in a flawed world. So good. And you should listen to the audiobook because one of the Fanning sisters reads it and it's beautiful. Number 8, Maybe You Should Talk to Someone, a therapist, her therapist, and Our Lives Revealed by Lori Gottlieb. Mental health is so important, and this book was a sweet advocate for therapy. It is written by a therapist about her experience with clients and then also as a patient going to her own personal therapist. And it wasn't totally self-help preaching, which I really like. She comes to the subject from a pretty humble perspective of she is a therapist and thinks that she knows a lot, but in becoming a patient, she realizes that there's so much she doesn't know, which is just a really cool stance to hear about. My heart really broke for her patients, and I experienced a lot of empathy for all of their stories. I also learned a lot about the practice of therapy and the importance of discussing hard parts of life in order to grow and change. Definitely 5 stars. Number 7, We Could Be Rats by Emily Austen. I think Emily Austen is such an underappreciated author. I've loved everything she's ever written, and I don't hear enough people giving her the hype she deserves. The main character of this book is a dreamer. She's struggling to grow up and can't stop ruminating on the magic of childhood. She grieves her changing relationship with her childhood friend who is struggling with addiction, struggles with her relationship with her sister, who just wants her to be a polite, contributing member of society. It was really unique, but also so universal and a really, really beautiful testament of love. It's so tough when you read a book that's so good and it's really hard to find the words to describe it, and then also there's only so many things I can say without fully spoiling the plot. So just trust me that it's really, really good. Number 6, Heart the Lover by Lily King. Lily King is so up my alley. I love everything that she's written. Heart the Lover is a literary fiction following a 20-year-old girl navigating complicated romantic relationships, which is my favorite genre of book. I cried on the plane when I finished this book, which is just a testament to the impact that it had on me. So good, so well written. I really, really loved this book. Hated some of the characters and I was rooting for them. You should read it. 5, The Wedding People by Alison Espach. I'm on a mission to, I don't know why I did this, but I'm repainting all of my Book of the Month sleeves because I don't like this guy, but I did have fun with this one. Phoebe is at rock bottom after a failed marriage when she comes to this extravagant hotel in Rhode Island and encounters Lila, a bright-eyed bride with a gusto for inserting herself into other people's lives. What ensues is an unlikely friendship between two women who both have big secrets and can only seem to confide in each other. I really, really liked this book. The plot gripped me from chapter 1. The bantering dialogue propelled it along, and ultimately what triumphed was the idea that a life can begin at 45 or whenever you want to start over. Whatever you want to do, life will always be worth living. Number 4, Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. One of my favorite authors. She truly never misses. Joan grew up obsessed with the stars and looks to them for guidance through the chaos of her own life. As a female in a male-dominated field in the 80s, Joan's identity is often challenged, but she has such grace and persistence through it all. Although the themes are very deep, she still wrote a very fun book. I fell in love with Joan and her relationship with her niece Frances, her fellow astronaut crewmates, and the love story that develops. This one will tear your heart into a million pieces and make you feel whole all at the same time. The Rachel Incident. I loved this book, which is why it's number 3, obviously. But first of all, just the genre again. Think Sally Rooney and Dolly Alderton, 20-year-old protagonists just figuring out life the best that they can. Except this one actually really had a plot, like a great plot, and quotation marks, which is why some people don't like Rooney. At the climactic scene, I literally put the book down and was like, oh my gosh. And my roommate who was sitting over there was like, what are you reading? And I was like, this book is so good. I already want to reread it. I read it 7 months ago. It just surprised me in such a devious and wonderful way. Set in Ireland in the early 2000s, the story follows Rachel, who is a college student studying English and working at a bookstore. She lives with her best friend and co-worker James, and together they conspire to get her dreamy professor to come visit the store. They plan an elaborate release for his book based on fudged sales and a crush. What ensues is nothing short of hilarious genius. This is such a good book. You should absolutely go read it. Number 2, The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. This is an exceptional epic tale that reimagines the Underground Railroad as a literal secret train that helps slaves escape. Cora is born a slave and her mother leaves the plantation when she is young. Years later, fueled by rage and also hope from her own mother's escape, Cora decides to run away. Her story is so heartbreaking, infuriating, but full of hope and resilience. It's so well written, and now I really want to pick up all of Colson Whitehead's books. A must read. Dun da da da! My number 1 pick, the best book that I read last year, This Is How It Always Is by Laurie Frankel. I adored this book. It was actually really hard. My top 4, 5 options were all so wonderful that this ranking was really difficult, but this one was just like a clear number 1. I stayed up way past my bedtime while I was reading this because once I met Claude and Poppy, I didn't want to leave their world. It was one of those stories that reminded me of why I love reading so much. Every page was just packed with empathy and poetic prose. The Walsh Adams clan is a very precocious bunch, and I quickly fell in love with the family's story. It follows 2 parents, as they fall in love and raise a family of 5 boys and handle the day when their baby boy comes to them and tells them that he wants to be their daughter. Really heavy topics were tackled in this book with just such grace and nuance. Despite the content being oftentimes heartbreaking, Frankel carries you along in a way that I can only describe as magic. It was such a magical book and just such must read. Despite like what you might believe or think that you believe, you should absolutely read this book because it gave me such a new perspective, and I really respected this family, and this book was so beautiful. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you find something to read. Happy New Year and happy reading.